Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and this is the Donegal Sport Hub Donegal Daily Championship Podcast, brought to you in association with Kellys Centra, multi-award-winning store, Mountaintop Letterkenny, providing 24-hour service, 7 days a week. And you're very welcome once again to our look at the Championship. We'll be looking back over the weekend gone by and looking forward to the last series of matches in the groups next weekend when the quarter-finalists will be decided. We're getting a great reaction and many thanks for that as well. And thanks to Kellys Centra here at the Mountaintop for their support. We're in full tilt studios and we've got a busy programme lined up here. Great reaction, as I said. A bit of stick for one of our panellists, John Harn, who famously said in our first broadcast here that Four Masters would beat nobody in the Championship. Well, as it turned out, they've beaten somebody and they have a chance of making it through to the quarter-finals. Now, he's not here today, John Harn, but we haven't done an RTE Joe Brawley here. We haven't thrown him under the bus. We knew that he wouldn't be here before today. You can take my word for that. But I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Frank Craig. We did try to get Stephen Rochford, by the way, but he wasn't available either. Frank Craig is with me. Frank, you're very welcome. Well-known sports journalist here, joining Francie, Friel and Chris McNulty and myself. Congratulations to Milford, to Danny O'Donnell and his squad and everybody involved in the club. Not only are they through, but they're the first team through to the quarter-finals of the Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure Senior Championship. A great achievement after their relegation from Division 1. They've bounced back with a couple of victories and they're through, having beaten Four Masters and last weekend Glenfin. Frank, you're welcome. I'm going to start with you. You were at that game, Milford against Glenfin. Great result for Milford. Glenfin came back at them late in the game, but a deserved victory for them.
I definitely very impressed with Milford in their home patch. And we said a week earlier they only secured their first one in Championship in something like 26 years in the senior grade. So then to follow that era up the week after with the one that not only secures their passage but secures their passage as group winners. Very impressive. Glenfin got back into the game late on with two kind of fortuitous goals. One the penalty from Jared Ward. I think he had 1-5 in the day. But Luke Barr at 9 points from midfield, 6 of them in play, was what kind of stood out for me. And just delighted to see a side, bridging new ground like that there. And as we said, down to the last round of games, and only one side, I think we've come to the conclusion, whether our calculators and pens beforehand are going through, and it's Milford. And nobody probably would have picked that there at the start for them to have been in pole position like that.
Well, two people that didn't pick for us, myself and Francie Friel, because we tipped Glen Swilly and Glenfin to come out of that group. Francie, we got that wrong. Credit to Milford.
Yeah, definitely so. Big credit to Milford, alright, and they got the one up, their away game against Donegal Town and set them up and post first victory in 26 years, as Frank alluded to there, and they went down to play Glenfin. We knew it was going to be tight. I thought Glenfin might, just with a bit of experience, come out in it, but Milford shaded on the day, and fair play to them. They're in the quarter final, and listen, they've topped the group now too, so they've probably got the easier side of the draw as well. They won't provide the top teams, so they're in a good place.
Yeah, 117 they scored. Chris, you were at the game along with Frank as well. I mean, that was good stuff. And as Frank said, Glenfin got those couple of late goals that put a bit of a shine on the scoreline for them.
And I suppose one thing that was impressive about Milford was the way they didn't kind of lose their heads when Glenfin did get them 2 goals, because when Daniel McGlynn scored, it was level game last minute, and you were thinking, geez, Milford are going to buckle here, because Glenfin had the jump on them at that point, but they kept their heads, kept their cool. They came out with a couple of counter-attacks, tacked on 2 or 3 late points. They were impressive winners in that sense, that they didn't sort of buckle under the way Glenfin go for goals, and they got the penalty, and about 90 seconds later they had a second goal, and there was a real momentum shift, and you could feel that in the place. There was a bit of nervousness in the stand, but not in the field. Frank alluded to Luke Barrett there. I think as well the introduction of Ryan McMahon early in the second half. Came on, Conor McHugh got a black card early in the second half, and he came on. He had a real steadying influence, won a lot of ball, helped him carry the ball forward, and just had a real good presence about him in that second half.
Yeah, strong squad, Francie. I know they were relegated from Division 1. I saw them a few times. They were beaten by a few points here and there, and I mean that made all the difference. But Danny has a fairly strong squad and plenty of options there.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think Danny alluded to earlier on in one of the league games, I think it was a couple of games ago, that they hadn't got their full team access to them all year. So I think he's got everybody available to him. And listen, you're going to need everybody now. Going down the home stretch here, especially now. They're playing Glen Swilly, and they're in the quarter final. So Danny has to look at it now. What does he do this week? Does he play his full team and see what they're like, or does he try fellas out? Maybe people didn't get much game team throughout the year, and see where that brings them as well. But listen, you have to give credit to Milford. They're in a good place now going forward, and they play Glen Swilly this week, and the pressure is really off Milford and on Glen Swilly.
Yeah, I suppose we said when that draw was made that any two of those teams could come out of that group, and that's the way it's turned out, because that's the way it is at the moment, depending on how the results go in the last game. A very even sort of a group. If anything, Glenswolly's situation is the biggest surprise there, maybe.
Definitely, but just to touch on Milford before we leave them, I know they were relegated from Division 1, but maybe playing Division 1 football this year battle hard them for that there section. I know it might have been from where we were standing, Chris, the last day, but the home crowd really played a big part in that there 1-2. They were very noisy, Chris, and as you said, there was a bit of nervousness there near the end when the game ticked into, you know, injury time, but as you said, totally convincing and kicking 3 points in a row and winning it. The Glenswolly one, I think the surprise there is that maybe Masters had such a poor season, dropped down to Division 3. Nobody really seen that there result coming. Even at any side with Michael Murphy, and if you expect maybe would drag them over the line themselves. I think he might have kicked all their 6 scores, but it wasn't just the victory. You know, the deficit of defeat there was what really raised eyebrows around the county. And as you say, it will cost them. It most likely will cost them if it comes down to score difference. And Glenswolly's, I'm sure I don't have the figure there, but it probably makes for poor reading.
Absolutely. Just before we go on to that game, because myself and Chris and Francie were all at that game, just going to go back to the Milford game. After the game, Chris spoke to the Milford midfielder, Luke Barrett. Here's what he had to say about their victory.
Yeah, look, it's massive. As, you know, when the draw was made, ourselves, 4 Masters and Glenfin were probably looking at it as a group that we could get out of. We targeted probably from early on in the year that we wanted to make a go at it, and I suppose a lot of people would have tipped this game to be the one to decide who comes out of the group, and thankfully today we came out the right side of the result, and we're looking forward to the draw.
Luke Barrett there speaking to Chris after the game. Frank just alluded to the Glenswolly situation. Francie, we were there, 2-11 to 6 points. I think Chris described it in his report in the Sports Hub as a hammering, and that's what it was.
Oh, it definitely was. And nobody seen that coming. And 4 Masters, you know, supposed to come down. The belief within themselves, you know, to try and get a result. But Glenswolly are a battle-hardened team, you know. And listen, a team with Michael Murphy in it, like, you know, especially at home, you'd only probably one winner in Glenswolly. But 4 Masters came down with a game plan, and they just had serious pace going forward. Yeah. When they got the turnovers, they were just getting scores, and you know, credit to them, they stuck to their plans. And in the second half, they were under a bit of pressure for the first 10 or 15 minutes, second half, and just stuck to it, and they grinded out the result. And it was, you know, at the end, it could have been any score, and they got 2-11. And post from Glenswolly's point, 2 points in the second half. You know, in a championship game, it's not good reading, is it?
Yeah. Chris, this time last week I was saying to you, Glenswolly got out of jail up in Glenfin. They certainly didn't last weekend. It's not the Glenswolly that we've known over the years in the championship. And I mean, they've got a huge game now against Milford. They have an outside chance, and that's all it is, of making the quarter-finals, and maybe a bit of an outside chance of not being the bottom team in this section.
It's, I suppose, funny now for Glenswolly, because it's the destiny's not in their own hands. You know, 4 Masters go and win. It doesn't matter what Glenswolly do or how they do it. They're gone. The one thing that got me about Glenswolly, it wasn't even how poor their performance was or how poor their play was. They actually just looked spent. They looked empty. They just looked like a team that was fatigued. Just looked like somebody's on the road too long. Like, you know, there's no energy in them in the second half. There was a period at the very start of the second half where, you know, you were kind of thinking, right, I remember saying to Francie, there's 17 minutes left here, 4 Masters are going to feel the force of something here over the last period. But it didn't transpire. You were kind of waiting it all the time to happen.
It went the other way, really, didn't it?
You were looking to watch, and if anything, 4 Masters grew into the game, and Glenswolly just totally went out of the game. And it was so surprising, because they're always a team on the backs here against the wall, that you come with this big response, and they come, and there was just nothing there on Sunday. And that has to be a worry, because to turn that around in 7 days and to find something, you know, as I said, it wasn't even just the level of performance, it was the level of energy, just they're even down to their sort of level of fitness. It just looked, late in the first half, they were flagging. Now, you wonder that moment with a goal, or the goal that wasn't, had that gone in, how big a moment was that in the game now? And in the context of how late in the first half it was, what it would have meant to the scoreline, and the lift it maybe would have given Glenswolly at the time, we'll never know.
No. Frank, is it the end of an era for Glenswolly? This team won 3 championships in the last 10 years. They were in another final as well. They've contested. They were in a semi-final last year. There's a lot of those players that have been around for pretty much all of that time. Is this it, do we think?
I think it's definitely a period of transition. I mean, we've never factored in Glenswolly's league form coming into championship. But
yeah.
I think the alarm bells were their first day out in that performance against Glenfin. And you look at them, I mean, Neil Gawler, I mean, he's missed so much of this here season and last season through injury. Very hard to get up to the speed of a game. I think Gary Copper McFadden's absence is huge for them.
Yeah.
There's a cluster of 4 or 5 players there that are very, very important to Glen Swilly, and I don't think if they're not firing all cylinders, they're in trouble. And some of those obviously are maybe at the latter stage of their career now. Of course, Gary Copper McFadden will be back next year. Michael Murphy's still there, the likes of Joe Gibbons, the 2 Kellys. Apparently there is fantastic work being done out in Glenswell. I don't think they're going to go away and drift off the radar to where they once came from. I think they'll settle down a couple of seasons to get some young players through, and they'll need to replenish that their squad, because they have probably been over reliant on that great group of 5 or 6, the likes obviously of the Kieran Boners too, that have served them so well. But listen, Gary McDade was chatting last week of where they'd come from. I mean, he had gone out to watch Glenswilly against Union's thirds in the not too distant past when he was growing up. So they won 3 championships in the last decade. I think they're going to struggle for the next couple of seasons maybe to challenge for the Dr. Maguire, but I don't see them drifting off the radar completely.
Well, I wouldn't pay too much attention to what Gary McDade said, because he famously said one time that Glen Swilly was squeezed between 2 superpowers, and I thought he was talking about Russia and the United States, but it was actually St Eunan's and Leith Connell he was talking about, and he told us that there was only 300 houses. With all due respect to Gary, he underplays the situation somewhat. Anyway, let's go back to Four Masters. What a fantastic performance by them, badly needed, and one of the stalwarts of Four Masters for many years, Barry Dunyan, played a fantastic role, and Chris spoke to him after the game.
Aye, massive, Chris. I suppose I don't really know where we pulled that out, to be honest with you, but I suppose there was no pressure on us coming on here, and we said we were just going to go out and we were going to go at it for the first 30 minutes and see where we were at half time, and that's the way the game kind of panned out. It was nip and tuck early on, and then we got a few scores ahead, and I suppose they got a goal disallowed then in the first half, which was probably a big turning point in there on them. But listen, we worked hard, and so we got the result in the end.
That's Barry Dunyan, and lumped a little bit after the game. He'll hoping to be fit for the game in Glen Swilly. Right, in Glenfin, excuse me. Let's move on to Group D. Frank, you were there. Kilcar going on their merry way. They've scored more than anybody so far, looking very comfortable. A 7-point victory over Bundoran. Was it as easy as it sounded?
Yeah, very easy. And even the week before against Malin, they never came out of second gear. Very comfortable winners. I think they've looked at this here group and probably within themselves they know that they're going to top this group and come out comfortably ease into the quarterfinals. Even last week in Bundoran, they never really had to push the button. I was a wee bit disappointed with Bundoran because in essence it was a free shot. The dynamic of that group meant it was all on the line first day out between Bundoran and Termon. So last week I thought Bundoran down there, tight pitch, make it uncomfortable for Kilcar. But even at half time, Bundoran rate points down, came out the second half, sat back, and we had the scenario then of Ryan McHugh, Mark McHugh, and these players comfortably cornered Doherty, moving the ball along their own 45, a wee bit to the annoyance of the crowd, but there was no onus on Kilcar to go into that there mass pool of bodies, and a bit of frustration crept in then, and it kind of resulted in those 2 bookings for Paul Brennan, and they went down to 14 men. But then I suppose sensing that they had nothing to lose and the shackles were off, within a minute and a half Jamie Brennan had the ball in the net. They ended up losing by 7 down to 14 men. So I thought they could have maybe went for it a wee bit more, maybe asked a couple of questions. They went direct once into big Tommy Hurahan, and I think he got a touch on the ball, very unlucky, but it was the only ball they sent his way, the only time he went into full forward. You wonder if there are question marks to be asked of Kilcar, but sides don't seem to want to ask them. I mean, at number 3 you wonder Conor McShane, into his 4th decade. Mickey Higgery didn't play the last day at centre half back into his 4th decade, but they're very good at maybe protecting those perceived weaknesses that we feel they might have. And I'm not being derogatory to the 2 boys because they have both been fantastic footballers, but absolutely. The reality is, they're into their 40s. But again, those avenues weren't particularly at full-back when tested the last time.
In the twilight years. You spoke, or Paddy McGill spoke to Mark McHugh and Ocean FM after the game. He had some interesting views about the way both Malin and Bundoran have approached the games against Kilcar, Chris.
Frank used the word frustration that was in the crowd, and Mark was sort of touching that teams almost have their beaten sort of before they go, and they sort of make peace with themselves. Right, we're not going to win this game. Let's keep the score down. Niall Dunn actually himself in an interview with Paddy mentioned that on Sunday that a 7-point championship defeat. How do you feel about that? And he sort of says, a 7-point defeat, I'll take that. Yeah. Because he had sort of said, right, we don't want to come out here and get a hammering today. They had maybe just sort of said to themselves, right, we ain't going to win this game, so let's try and keep the score down. And Mark's sort of frustration was, he said, every game I play I want to win. These teams didn't want to go out. Now, when you're playing a team like Kilcar, it's probably a bit easier to have that mindset or that, because the dynamic's different, the aims, the targets are all different. They're thinking about winning a championship. Bundoran, for them, what's a good season? Probably getting into the quarterfinals, and let's sort of take it from there. Kilcar have a longer aim and can have those bigger ambitions. And then you talk about the setup, like you're playing against Kilcar, they're probably one of the quickest counter-attacking teams around. You look at the pace they have with the McHughes, the two McLeans, Connor Doherty, all these players. If you start going toe-to-toe with us, you could be in serious trouble. And they've proven that against teams when they have gone man-to-man and stuff, and teams haven't sat in. They've absolutely...
But I don't think Bundoran were under duress the last day. They almost had a free shot, because you expect them to beat Malin, the next day. So I thought Bundoran, it was a perfect opportunity to see what, test yourself against a really good side.
I suppose if you look at Bundoran's team as well, it's not that Bundoran are, should be seen as maybe a while lesser light either. If you go through their team, like they are a damn good team, they're Division 1 team, couple of county players there and players of a good level. Maybe, I didn't see the game on Sunday, but maybe was it a case where, you felt, Frank, they should have had a go?
Definitely, they're conservative, and the fact, it's a very strange... when you look at a pitch to the side, they're 8 points down after coming out at half time on their own home patch, and you're looking to encourage people maybe in Bundoran to come out and watch Gaelic football. I was reading Brian McAnuff today, and he was saying the Kilcar supporters probably outnumbered Bundoran 3-1 there. So you're looking to maybe to be a good advertisement in your own parish first and foremost. And the Gaelic Park has that sort of claustrophobic kind of feel to it. When I came into the pitch to make my way across the dugouts, the first thing I noticed was maybe the pitch wasn't half as narrow as maybe some other sides might have made it. They could have been a wee bit cynical, maybe that their way. Level the playing field, bring it down to their level, and really go at them. Jamie Brennan, I thought as well, the last day, I thought he was pretty quiet. I thought young Brian O'Donnell, bar maybe one or two balls, did a reasonable enough job on him as well. But as you say, they're physical, they're a big side, but they've plenty of good footballers. Bundoran, they're certainly not a pushover or one of those sides that I think will go out and get obliterated by Kilcar in that there sense. But as you say, happy to sit back and take a 7 or 8 point defeat. No, I wouldn't be happy with that.
No, that's just before I go to Francie, because obviously Termon are in that group as well. Mark McHugh's views, let's just hear what Mark had to say.
I suppose, Paddy, we're happy enough just to come away with the victory. It's a tight wee field up here, and conditions weren't probably great, and underfoot was slippy, but Bundoran have been coming good this last few weeks, Maxi Kearns and been training them, and they've put together a lot of victories end of the league. They beat Glenties up here, and we knew they were formidable outfits, so we came with the game plan, and we came away with a victory, so we're obviously happy.
Francie, interesting views there from Mark about it. I'm sure Termon won't be going down an all-out attack to Townie this weekend either. Now, you won the game in Malin, which was vital for you because it's retained your senior status after the disappointment of the week before. If you beat Kilcar, there's a chance you could make it, because it's not a foregone conclusion. We all expect Bundoran to meet Malin, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
No, but just back to the point you're chatting about, when you're playing Kilcar, it's pure kamikaze if you go man on man, because they'll actually just take you to task, and it's actually could get embarrassing what they could score in you. They have so many good players in their team, and that's the respect other teams have for them. Like, other teams don't want to go out and play man on man, because they'll get beat out the gate. And just for example, now if Kilcar's playing Gweedore in a county final, Gweedore won't go man on man. Gweedore will play with a blanket. So that's the way teams are going to play against Kilcar. Glenswilly did it in 2016 and beat them in a final. You know what I mean? Glenties, they played them in 2017 final, and they didn't go man on man. It was the worst final ever, 7-4. So that's the respect teams have for Kilcar. Kilcar are that good of players at the minute, as we say, that you just can't go man on man, and that's probably what Bundoran, they probably, as you say, Frank, it was probably, they should, could have played it a bit better, but they didn't want to go out and get a tank another, because
I suppose when you start games again, I completely understand Unions and Gweedore and time they meet. Unions seem to mirror them, and then you get this kind of pedestrian sort of a contest. But the fact that Bundoran had found themselves 8 points down and even maybe safe in the knowledge that they're probably still going to progress from that group. I just thought they could have showed a wee bit more ambition, you know.
I think they played in the league and they beat them by 19 points, and I think that was in the back of their head.
Yeah, that's what you say. It's probably the easiest thing for us is probably to say that, you know, you should be a wee bit more ambitious. But as Francie said, you can be handed a rude awakening. As Francie,
we haven't as much writing to do when there's only one team scoring either.
It's funny though, if you go back to that year that I think it was the year Kilcar lost in the county final to Glenswilly. They played Niamh Connell in a semi-final and they absolutely tore strips of Niamh Connell, and Niamh Connell, who are one of the big few.
Well, there was a hangover to the final the following year then, because it was 7-3 or 7-4 that game, you know. Yeah. Right, we'll leave the two groups. Just before we do, Milford are through again. Many congratulations to Danny O'Donnell. If Four Masters beat Glenfin, it doesn't matter what happens in Glenswilly, Four Masters will be through. If Four Masters are beaten by Milford and both Glenfin and Glenswilly won, then it'll come to scoring difference. They'll be on 3 points. It'll go to scoring difference. At the moment, Glenfin are on -3, Glenswilly are on -11. So the scores and no matches are going to be key. In Group D, Kilcar pretty much need a point to be certain of qualifying. They're going to qualify anyway because they have a great scoring difference. If Bundoran beat Malin, they will join them in the quarter-finals. If Termon beat Kilcar, they would be on 4 points as well. It would go to scoring difference. And interestingly, at the moment, Termon are +8 better off than Bundoran are. So, Francie, maybe the incentive there to go for it and get a big victory. Anyway, let's move on to Group A. And interesting game in the bridge. We were there, Francie, myself and yourself. And St Michael's missed the boat, really, didn't they?
Oh, definitely so. I think, you know, as I said when I was walking out the gate, I think they missed a trick. Especially, you know, it was a bad day for starters. There was a serious breeze. And St Michael's in the first half played against the breeze, and they held Gweedore to 6 points. The score at half time was 6 points to a goal, 3 points on it. They came out in the second half, and that's where I think they missed the trick. They played Andrew Kelly full forward in his own, and Gweedore were able to play 3 men on him. Michael Langan on side for one ball, and a complete chaos. Kieran Gillespie had to go and pick him up. Now, if I was St Michael's manager, I would have played Colin McFadden and Michael Langan on side. That means Neil McGee had to go full back and Kieran Gillespie possibly to go in. That would make their line go further back, and you'll be able to get easier shots off in the D, because Gweedore are brilliant at protecting the D, the shooting zone. And I thought, with the players like the Crusties, and bring Andrew Kelly out the pitch, he's a good footballer, as you can run the ball. But if they played the two big boys on side and kicked in a high ball, look at the caused serious problem inside. And that's where I think they missed a trick, especially with the breeze was in it. One ball went in and it caused complete chaos, and that's the end of it.
They played in the second half the way they played in the first. They played with the one the same way as they played against it. Too many players outside the 45, outside the scoring zone, as you say. And even as the game went on, they were still there, Francie. They were still in with a chance, because Gweedore weren't. I mean, Gweedore's goal came 5 or 6 minutes into injury time, so they only added 2 points in that second half, but they stayed ahead all the time.
Yeah, and listen, I was down beside the Gweedore dugout, and Gweedore were looking just to keep the ball, you know. And in fairness, listen, they're no strangers to playing against the breeze either. They're very good at keeping the ball, but just St Michael's, like, have a go here, like. You know, kick the ball on high. You know, it caused the one was like it was. You'd score like Michael or McGinley's kickouts were getting to the other side of the 45. You know, just that shows you the one. You know, this weekend now against St Eunan's. You know, it's for both teams it's winner takes all. You know, a draw does St Eunan's, but they'll be posted going out for the one as well. But St Michael's definitely this week. If it's anything like the ones like last week, they'll have to have a go, and I think they have to come up with something different, because listen, St Eunan's are going to be defensive as well. It'll be a game of cat and mouth here, and I think St Michael's definitely have to go with something different this week, because if they go with the same Andrew Kelly on side and Iceland 1-on-1 on side, he's not going to get the scores.
Because St Eunan's have strong defenders in there. Chris, Gweedore 1-3 in their first game, 1-8 in their second game. They've scored the least in the championship. We won't say too much about that, because Francie made a comment about that last year, coming out of the group, and they went and scored a massive score against Bundoran. But they've had to face 2 situations where teams have set up very defensively against them. They haven't managed it too well now. St Eunan's probably should have beat them in Maharagallen, and if, as Francie says quite rightly, if St Michael's had shown more ambition, they could have beat them last week. But the reality is they've got 3 points out of 4.
I suppose you can analyse that, but from a Gweedore point of view, they've got away with it. If that's kind of the right thing to say, they probably St Eunan's felt they could have caught them a couple of weeks ago. St Michael's, as Francie said, missed a boat. But from a Gweedore point of view now, you've come through, you're in that group of death, you're in that boiling hot cauldron, you've managed now to sort of come through it.
Yeah.
Will we see a different Gweedore like we did last year in a similar scenario where they've come out and they're almost completely different, different side in terms of their scoring in the quarterfinals? We'll see that in a couple of weeks' time. But I would say Gweedore are ultimately happy enough with where they're at. I think at that stage it was just a matter of avoiding the banana skins, avoiding the defeat. They're going to now, ultimately, they are going to advance into the quarterfinals, and we probably will see a different Gweedore in the quarterfinals.
But just on that, I think Gweedore this time last year, Kevin Cassidy was playing unbelievable stuff on the side. I don't think he got a point last week.
Yeah,
pressed the point. I don't think he scored against St Eunan's.
No,
and the ball's not been kicked into them, so they're trying to run the ball all the time, and that avenue's been kicked up because teams are just mirroring them now and going ultra defensive. And I think they were struggling for scores. Against St Michael's, they scored 1-3, or St Eunan's 1-3 and
1-8 with the goal coming in the 6 minutes of injury time.
I suppose they're going to say, it was 2 bad days and the weather and stuff like that there, but listen, everybody else has to deal with it as well. I just think the scores are still, I think definitely St Michael's last week, and even Eunan's the week before had enough chances as well to beat them, so they're going to have to, it's not disrespecting Ardra. I think they'll get away with it this week, but I think as the competition goes on, they need to get more scores.
I think the one thing that kind of, if you look at Gweedore's year last year, every game there was always kind of somebody different that was popping up with a big score. Like Gweedore haven't had that marquee forward of a Murphy or a Colin McFadden or Paddy McBurdy, that those teams, for instance, have been reliant on. Gweedore have been fit to find a man that'll maybe kick 1-3 or kick 5-6 points. They were able to do that last year. It'll be interesting to see can they replicate that, because you look at say Glenswally, Murphy any day goes out, he's going to kick those 5 or 6 points. Same with Paddy McBurdy, Jimmy Brennan, Bundoran. Most other teams have a sort of a marquee forward. Gweedore maybe outside of Warren McNeilis, and you can't, he plays a lot of his football out the field, like he wouldn't he's not a conventional forward as such. Can Gweedore find those scores? That for me is an interesting one to just keep an eye on with Gweedore over the next few weeks.
You'll be hoping they don't find them this week up in Ardra anyway, Frank, that's for sure. But they've worked their way. They're in a good situation. They haven't produced their best. That's what champions do, of course. They won matches when they're not producing their best.
Well, I think you just have to look at who makes up their group. So they say styles, make fights and boxing. I think it's the same with football. St Eunan's held Gweedore last year in O'Donnell Park, so St Eunan's probably knew that was the way to play them, and Maragallany did it. And then, of course, I would say St Michael's took their lead from that there. Yeah. That's how they were going to set up. But listen, Gweedore are they're on 3 points. They'll most likely go through. So I think it depends who they meet. I mean, down the line, if we get to a county semi-final or county final and it's Gweedore against St Eunan's, believe me, we're going to get the exact same fare that we seen 2 weeks ago and that we seen last year in O'Donnell Park. So it just depends. I mean, Kilcar are probably the kind of side that will go out and back themselves. I think we talk about Naomh Conaill, they haven't got the result the last 2 years. They need to do something different. So maybe Naomh Conaill will back themselves and be a wee bit more braver. It depends, containment and 1 or 2 different kind of things. It depends what your ambition is.
Yeah.
If you want to contain Gweedore or do you want to beat them? I suppose that's what it'll boil down to. It'll be very interesting to see in the latter stages of the championship how the so-called other big 3 or big 4 play against Gweedore if Gweedore edge on through.
Just stay with the group. Chris, you spoke to Keelan Ward after St Eunan's victory. We'll just hear from Keelan first here before we talk about the game, because the scoreline would suggest a very easy victory, but I listened to your interview with Sean Patton. He wasn't overly pleased with the way they played, particularly in the first half. But let's hear what Keelan Ward had to say first of all.
We kind of pushed up and we just went a wee bit more aggressive on their kickouts as such, and we kind of got a bit more reward then as the game went on, and we were able to pin them in. And we were comfortable enough towards the end.
That's St Eunan's defender, Keelan Ward. At the moment, Chris, St Eunan's are 3 points plus 12, Gweedore 3 points plus 5. Now, one in the group has its bonuses. So is that what this weekend's all about? St Eunan's been positive going to St Michael's because they know they have a +7 victory, a +7 gain at the moment, but suspecting that Gweedore could put a score up against Ardra.
I think probably getting through is the big game. Out of this group, I don't think really anybody's worried about topping the group. I think it's just a matter of getting through. St Eunan's is a funny one. Like I was very disappointed with St Eunan's, I have to say, on Sunday, and yet you look and they've won by 12 points, and you're kind of, there's a bit of a contrast there. Like, they were disappointing, they won by 12 points, but it wasn't until the last 15 minutes, I think they're probably, the strength of their panel and probably their overall strength only began to tell in that last 15 minutes. Like, Ardra were well in that game after about 40-45 minutes. Niall O'Donnell's goal, which was kind of the midway point of the second half, was the one that finally broke Ardra, because now Ardra had only scored, I think, 2 points after John Ross Malloy's goal, which came in the 7th or 8th minute up to that point, and yet they were still in the game. St Eunan's, just to me, didn't show up. Like, if you're thinking about a longer term thing, didn't show a lot of what you would expect from a team with championship ambitions. There was a frustration there. Sean Patton and Keelan Ward both touched on it, that, you know, it took them a half to get going, and after getting a positive result in Gweedore, you know, you'd expected St Eunan's to be coming in, chest out, standing 6 feet tall, and, you know, putting out a bit of a statement. They didn't do that. They're going to the bridge themselves, and St Michael's have had a few ding-dong battles over the years now. St Eunan's have a psychological thing over them. They've had the upper hand big time on St Michael's in the championship, but to me, St Eunan's have to show a lot more, even allowing for the fact they've won by 12 points on Sunday. They really, really have to show much more than they did.
I think they're kind of analytical, the way they set themselves up. Eunan's, I don't think they're ever going to pummel teams into the ground, but they've already shown that they're very close to maybe having Gweedore's number. And you touched on it there, you know, we mentioned Sean Patton. Sean Patton, I think, could be the most influential player in this here championship. You know, if you press up on him, he can go over the top of you. I mean, you know, if you sit back, he can pick those pockets between the 45. So, I mean, he's going to be very interesting for St Eunan's going forward, and I think he'll have a big say if Eunan's do manage the edge through to the knockout stage. Sean Patton could be vital in how far Eunan's go, without a doubt.
Francie, analyse this for me. St Eunan's conceded 1-3 against Gweedore, just 1-6 against Ardra. Defensively, they don't have issues.
No, definitely not.
But on the other end of the pitch, it would appear they do have issues. Now, I know they scored 118, but a lot of it in the last quarter when the game was going or gone type of thing. Is there an issue there?
No, I don't think there is. I think you look at that, you know, suppose two ways of looking at it. I think the way I would be looking at it anyway, I think, no disrespect to Ardra, but going out and, you know, probably beating Ardra, but, you know, you want to win the game first and foremost, but then people then are thinking about the next game ahead. And the St Michael's game, when they went, say, 1-10, 1-11, 1-12 up, next thing is just, you're turning St Michael's. Rory Cavanagh come off with an injury. You know, how bad is that injury? I think it was more precaution than anything else. That kind of set the tone there. He got out of jail, get ready now for St Michael's down the road. That's what they're thinking, you know, and you know, as I said, no disrespect to Ardra, they probably were playing the game where they knew they were going to win the game, and putting up a big score there again, you know, but really what he had probably topped the group. I think they knew themselves they still had to beat St Michael's.
Well, they've said, any of the Eunan's boys you talked to when the draw was made and since have all said the game at the bridge was going to be the deciding factor. Now, I think they didn't say it out loud, but they were probably talking in terms of finishing runner-up in the group rather than winning the group. So that's been in their heads that game is going to be the key game, and they were right. It is the key game.
Definitely so. And listen, what they're conceding, you know, definitely is very good. They're playing with a lot of bodies back, and that they're not conceding much and going forward. You know, I still think that's where, to me, I think they'll struggle against the bigger teams.
The best back seven, do you think?
I think that their defence is odd. That was never St Eunan's problem. They've always had good defenders. I think up front, you know, I think that day against Gweedore where they had 4 or 5 of the same type players, bringing off Rory Carr, bringing off Rory Cavanagh. They didn't have a big physical, you know, man in the forward line. You know, their defenders are all big, you know, good, strong, hardy men, but their forwards are all kind of light and just all of the same stature, if you know what I mean. So, listen, it'll be plain to be seen now, you know, what'll happen against them in St Michael's. But I still think St Eunan's will beat St Michael's this weekend.
Okay. So, if St Eunan's beat St Michael's and Gweedore beat Ardra, that's the big two, as they said, because St Michael's were always kind of judged to be third in that group, will go through. But if St Michael's beat St Eunan's, they will join probably Gweedore in the quarter-finals. Let's move on to the Group B, the last ones for today. I was in Dunlow on Saturday night. Terrible night for football. Niamh Connell, very impressive. 2-16 to 1-3. And Francie, I'll just stay with you for that. Going about their business nicely, got the job done against Killybegs, got the job done against Dunlow. They've got McCool's this weekend, and the carrot there is to win the group, which Martin Regan made no secret of the fact that's the aim when they start.
Yeah, that would be the aim for Niamh Conall at the start. Top the grip. Top the grip means you get probably a better chance of avoiding the top 2, top 3 teams. So listen, they've got that. They started off with the Killybegs at home, and they've what they call it now, McCool's at home now in their last game. And listen, Glenty's down, and Glenty's they're a force down there, and you only can see one winner this weekend. And going forward, like Niamh Conall will set their stall out there, seem to be getting more scores than they've been getting this time last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing going forward. It'll be very good for them.
Yeah. Spoke to a few of the Glenty's boys over the last couple of weeks because I was at their game against Killybegs as well. Interestingly, one point that's come out from several of them in different conversations was we want to get back to a county final, and we want to be more progressive in terms of the way we approach that county final, because we've talked about this, Frank, and you've talked about it previously. They didn't do themselves justice in the last 2 finals because they went out with too negative an approach, the fear of losing rather than the gain of winning.
Of course, and listen, I think we talked about 4 points and 7 points in those 2 finals, and that's just not good enough. And it depends how you set your team up. Like, some sides are forced to do that. We talk about Ardra and that they're so-called group of death. I mean, you kind of maybe have to be conservative to a sense, but you look at what Glenty's have at their disposal. Not just the likes of Kieran Thompson, Owen McGetting, and they're in the county panel already.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the stalwarts they have there, the Brent McDyers, Anthony Thompson no longer involved with the county panel, Dermot Brick Malloy no longer involved with the county panel, Marty Boyle, who used to be there. They're serious club players. Owen Wade, as good as any club player in the county. I think a wee bit more ambition, back themselves, and maybe learn from their lessons. I think pound for pound, Niamh Conall are right up there.
Yeah. Chris, they're gonna win the group. I think even if they lost, the score difference and all that sort of thing, but we can't presume anything like that. Big challenge for them, but a club really that need to get out of the group, take confidence into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, like you talk about the hurt Niamh Conall were coming with after losing the last couple of county finals. I think overall, this group of players or the club overall, since they made that breakthrough 2005, they've really, in many ways, they've kind of underachieved, as silly as that might sound, but they've left an awful lot of championships behind them. And I think they're carrying a lot of hurt from not just the last couple of years, but they do feel as a group of players that they could and possibly should have won more. Frank touched on 5 or 6 names there. Like, they're as good a club side, never mind the county players they have, your Kieran Thompsons and your Liam McClunes, Owen McGettigans. They're as good a club team. You take those 3 players out of there, they're still a damned formidable side. You look at the Brick, who, stepped away, couldn't come out to the county squad. If he hadn't done that, he'd probably still be thereabouts. The likes of Owen Wade has been on around the county team. They've got a serious crop of players, and going down the line this weekend, they'll probably beat McCool's. They put up a big score at the weekend. Brick touched on it, Martin Regan has touched on it. They want to put up more scores.
Yeah.
And it was obvious for the rest of us, but they knew that themselves coming into this year, and they're now starting to do that again. As I said last week, for them it's a matter of getting out of the group clean with no injuries, just getting out and sort of almost start again, if you like, to press the button for the quarterfinals. Yeah.
Well, one of the young up-and-coming stars, of course, is Ethan O'Donnell. He was very good in both matches so far in the championship, and after the game in Glenty's, in Dunlow, I spoke to him. Very, very calm and cool about the victory and obviously the target of finishing top in the group. Pretty comfortable in the end there?
Yeah, well, it was, but look, the elements today kind of made it a bit easier for us, considering the fact we were playing with a stiff wind and playing down the hill in Dunlow. So, but yeah, we came down here not knowing what to expect. Usually Dunlow, put it up to their real dogfight team, but no team could really play football in that day.
That was Ethan O'Donnell talking to me in Dunlow on Saturday evening. The other match in that group, I was down in Killybegs at Eamon Byrne Memorial Park, Frank, and McCool's come away very disappointed because they got a poor start. They were 1-4, 2 points down. They battled their way back to level. They got in front in the early stages of the second half. The goal they gave away was very unfortunate. Owen Gallen lost his footing and it went straight to young Conor Cunningham. He gave it to Ryan. But then they gave away a terrible second goal. They had a free and it was kicked straight to Hughie McFadden. Brilliant from him because the goalkeeper had come out to get the short one. He scored from about 40 metres. So 2 goals. You can't give away 2 goals in the championship. But Killybegs won the game just about. But now they've got a great chance against Dunlow. to go through. I mean, we knew they had 2 home games, but they're going to have to be better than they were against McCool's, I think, because McCool's probably should have won that game.
You know, you speak about groups and you know what you have to do before a ball's even kicked. Killybegs, probably knowing that they were going to lose to the Glenties, target these here 2 games. I mean, the complete imbalance with Termon and McCool's in their first game, you know, knowing that, Bundoran, it was all on the line. I was chatting to Bernard McGeehan this week in terms of previews just for the weekend. He was saying the 2 goals were completely avoidable, and even the second one, I think, only took Killybegs from 2 points down to a point ahead.
That's right.
But Bernard said they'd spent so much energy maybe getting back into the game that it just completely rattled them, and that you just couldn't dig any deeper to pull it back to their direction. Funny, I fancied McCool's to go to Killybegs and get the 1 at the weekend, so I'd say they'd be disappointed. And the fact that they dropped down in Division 2, you know, getting to the knockout stages of the Championship would have been a big step for that their side. But listen, it's wide open in that their group. There's a serious amount of permutations that could yet rattle it. I mean, 3 teams could yet finish on 4. I think 3 teams could finish on 2 from the bottom. So, you know, it's going to be a very interesting weekend.
Yeah. You just can't afford to give away the goals that they give away, Francie, and hope to win the game, because they managed the game well, apart from those 2 incidents. As I said, I felt sorry for Owen Gallen the first one, because he just lost his footing trying to take a short kick out. But the second goal was an absolute disaster, and I think, as Bernard said afterwards, they were in control of the game at that stage. There wasn't much in it, but McCool's looked the more likely to go on. So huge disappointment for them.
Oh, definitely. So after the result they got against Dunlow, you know, they knew if they would have won that game against Killybegs, they were in a quarter final. That's right. The difference, you know. Right. But listen, you know, post Killybegs are, you know, battle hardened, you know, and you know, sometimes you have to ride your luck in Championship, you know, and get across the line, and sometimes that's what you have to do, and that's what Killybegs did. They got the 2 goals, and they'll not be worried about that now. They know they played Dunlow this week, and they beat Dunlow. They're in the quarter final, and that'll be a big year for them, getting promoted to Division 1 and getting that quarter final. Killybegs, you know, back in the map again. You know, they've been away for a long time, but like we chatted about last week about McCool's, like, they got a big score against Dunlow, and they were never going to get that down in Killybegs. So listen, it was a big game for Killybegs to win, and they're home now again to Dunlow this weekend. So you could fancy Killybegs to beat Dunlow this weekend and get out of the group and second as runners up.
Any of the Killybegs lads I spoke to after the game, Chris, were quick to point out that Dunlow went down there not that long ago in the league and got a draw, and Killybegs say they were very lucky. They were lucky. You were at that game, Frank, to get the draw out of it. So Dunlow, obviously, the carrot might be there with a chance of avoiding relegation. They probably won't because of the score difference, but a bit of pride to go down and try and win the last game. But it's a big ask for them.
It is, and I suppose for Killybegs, you know, they probably need to sort of hang their hat on the fact that Dunlow did draw them, you know, because that sort of reminds them that they can't take the game for granted, you know, and that's something probably Rory and John Cunningham will be driving into them this week, that, you know, there's not a foregone conclusion. They have to sort of keep the ante up for this weekend. You'd have to fancy Killybegs, really. You know, you look through their squad, and even without Owen Ban, you would fancy them, you know, at home, chance of making it into the quarter-finals. And, you know, draw comes a certain way. Who's to say Killybegs couldn't, you know, get over another hurdle? But for now, again, if they turn up and play how, you know, Hughie's been a big influence on them over the last couple of weeks. Even he's contributing, you know, I talked about Oren McNeilis and the Gidor thing. Hughie's contributing big scores from the middle of the park. He's not just driving them and leading them. He's contributing on the scoreboard. 1-6 was it he got on Sunday. Serious contribution from the middle of the park.
Yeah,
but another thing, I think Paul McGinley coming back from America, he's on man marking now. He did a really good job on Ossian Gallen. Ossian Gallen 1 or 2 points.
One point. Like that's from a free, I think it was actually.
Paul McGinley, he was before he left, and he obviously still is.
Absolutely.
He was probably a player that would have been very, very close to a county senior call, because at the underage levels he was really one of the top men, and he was a big loss to Killybegs and to Donegal over the last few years.
Probably 5 or 6 in the same boat and around the same age and vintage that are, you know, you start looking to Shane Malloy's, the Jason Noctors. Killybegs have been hit very hard over the years. So as Francie said, they've gone up and they're very close to getting into a quarter-finals of the Senior Football Championship. It would be great to see them. I know they're coming back. They've got 2 back-to-back promotions, but I mean back and amongst the big boys. It would be brilliant to see, because they're a huge club.
Absolutely. And as Chris said, Hugh McFadden, big influence on the game. He scored 1-6 out of 2-8, and after the game I spoke to him, and as always, very sensible approach to the victory and the manner of it and what's ahead of them next week.
I think we might have been 5 points down at one stage. we played well in the first half and we started the game well when we got into a 5-point lead, but I suppose there was a 10-point swing around when McCool's went from 5 down to 5 up, and they dominated probably the latter part of the first half and the earlier stages of the second half. And but I thought the determination, the grit we showed throughout the second half was impressive. It wasn't a vintage display, but we showed heart and grit, you know.
Hugh McFadden, Kellybeg speaking to me there. Thanks to Kellys Centra at the Mountaintop, by the way, for their support with our Championship podcast each week. Just briefly to look at that Group B situation, Niamh Connell with a victory over McCool's will top it. If McCool's were to beat them, they would finish in 4 points. If Kellybegs were to beat Donegal, they would finish in 4 points. It would go to scoring difference. Niamh Connell would be through anyway because they have a very, very much superior scoring difference. And at the moment, McCool's are +6, Kellybegs are -4. So there's a 10-point gap there. So McCool's still have the incentive. If they beat Niamh Connell, the likelihood is they'll be in the quarter-finals. We were looking at some stats last weekend. The scoring average this week from the 8 matches, 28.875. It was just over 30 last week, so not too bad, you'd have to say. And Intermediate Championship is hot and heavy as well. Francie, I go to you because you were in the middle of it last year with Cloughaneely, and it hasn't changed very much, the situation. I've looked at who I think is going to be the 8 quarter-finalists here, and that's Cloughaneely, Red Hughes, Niamh Breed, Niamh Wora, A Rua, St Knolls, Niamh Columkill and Niamh Columba. Some are certain to go through. The main doubt there would be Niamh Breed and the Downings situation, because this weekend Niamh Breed play Red Hughes, and Downings are away to who is it? Niamh A Rua. So there's a possible situation where, Downings could overtake St Knolls, not Niamh Breed. But Cloughaneely back from the dead last week against Red Hughes to get a draw. They're top on that table. Red Hughes earned 3 points as well, Niamh Breed. This championship is so tight, Francie, because A Rua beat St Knolls by a point. Niamh Wora beat Downings by a goal. Niamh Columkill had 3 points to spare over Burt. Niamh Columba were the only comfortable winners over Fannet Gales. It's when it gets to the quarter-finals, it's going to be tight.
Yeah, that's what I think. Suppose you can get to the quarter-finals. That's where you start. Then you have to pull it together. Listen, it's probably one of the hardest tournaments to win. Because they're all probably evenly matched. There's not much. There's no big hidings in them games. There's no big. They're all fairly tight. They're nearly going to the end. So listen, Cloughaneely, for them, they're home now to Niamh this week. They know they won that there. They're top the grip, and well, I think it's seeded if you top the grip. So that would probably be a big incentive for them. But listen, the rest of the teams, that's going to A Rua there. I think big result for them beating St Knolls, putting a marker down there. It's a big result. 2 teams that have been fighting to go up to Division 1 this year, and another one, Niamh Columba. That's the third team. Any one of them 3 teams there, possibly, but going to win it.
Yeah. Just looking at it, Frank, let's say, hypothetically, these 8 teams get through. You have 1 Division 1 team, 3 Division 2 teams, and 3 Division 3 teams. There's some mixture.
There is, and funny, we talk about, the quality that's there in Donegal club football now. I mean, over the last 7 or 8 years, in terms of level of professionalism, and just how much better, the players have got. I mean, I think intermediate and junior football have gone to another level in Donegal too. We've seen that, in Ulster and even outside of Ulster, but we were talking about the lopsidedness of the groups there recently with someone, and we were saying, how could it be any better in senior football? And they said, how about seeding it off your league performance? But if that was the case, Cloughaneely would end up being seeded second in the senior football championship because they finished in the top 8. But I think Cloughaneely would have been the obvious one there to me. But you talking about, traditional names like Niamh Columba, obviously, and A Rua as well. It's a fantastic competition, and I think when it gets to the knockout stages now as well, you're going to have some serious tussles.
Cloughaneely have played their 2 matches, and I think will play their 3rd match without Jason McGee. Chris, I mean, that's a big loss to them. They're hoping he's going to be fit for the knockout stages, and I think maybe that's the reason he hasn't been playing. Will he make the difference for them when it gets to the quarter-finals and beyond, maybe? I
mean, he would have to. Well, not that he would have to, but you would have to expect that he would. I mean, county midfielder coming into a team that they're probably, I would fancy them at this stage. We've sort of touched on Cloughaneely's form, but they're probably going to go through as the group winners, and to be doing that and then pulling a player of Jason's calibre into the mix for the quarter final, give your whole squad a wild lift.
Francie?
Yeah, definitely. And Darren McGeever came back from Australia as well, so he's gone into the mix as well too. That's another good player. He was up with the seniors before he went away to Australia, so listen, that's another added bonus to them. But listen, it'll not come post to the quarter finals. You know where we stand with where it is, and then the draw from there.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be confused about the juniors as well, because we have one group of 4 teams and we have 2 groups of 3 teams. The results last week in Group A, Cairndonagh, 6-point victory over Lifford. Buncrana had a big one over Narossa. That's in Group A. In Group B, Convoy and Urus played out a draw, 2-8 to 14 points. Good away result there for Urus. And then in Group C, it was 1-9 to 1-7 for Moville over Muff. Chris, you've been looking at this situation in the Junior Championship. There are 10 teams there. We think, is it 8 teams to come out of that? Yeah. And there is a possibility, according to you don't always get it right, but anyway, that a team will get through to the quarterfinals without winning a game.
Yeah, so
or drawing a game either.
At the minute, Niamh Patrick of Muff have finished. They've played their 2 games and they have 0 points. And in one of the other groups, Robert Emmets have no points. They lost against Convoy the first day. They're away to Urus this weekend. Urus the great draw in Convoy at the weekend. If Urus beat Robert Emmets, then one of Robert Emmets or Niamh Patrick of Muff will be in a quarter final with 0 points.
Say that again. If
it's obviously scoring difference then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's 10 teams. Is there only 2 going to disappear from the...
Yeah, you see, the junior, there was an indication a few weeks ago that they were going to redraw the junior because
Petticoat
had withdrawn. But what
they took
did
a team
instead,
out of one...
They took... I think was it Moville out of one group and put them into the other. So there's 2
because it was 2 4s and a 3, and it became 1 4 and 2 3s then.
Yeah, and as somebody suggested the weekend, they probably should have redrew it maybe into 2 groups of 5 or something, because it's a bit bizarre really. It's a bit like, it's no fault to any of the 2 teams, but I mean to get into a quarter final, how did they do? They had 0 points. You know, it's
Narossa play Cairndonagh on Sunday, and they probably will be tough for them to get a result down there. But they have a point. They have a point, and Lifford have a point. No, they're better off scoring wise. So would it not make more sense, Francie, to put a team that's got a point through than a team that has no points?
Well, listen, it would, qualifying and not winning a game and not getting a point, I don't know, it's a bit bizarre. But post the 2 teams in question this week, I would definitely go with blanket defences to keep the score down. So, I'll be back to the old saying again, but no, listen, getting no points and getting to a quarter final, not winning a game, no description. It's not very fair in the other teams that got a point, through a game. So
it's a good story we've written there, Frank.
It is, but listen, that's the point of a group section. Just I suppose in defence of the fixtures, people, and that, like, it is a group section. If 2 sides finished on 3 points each, it would still come down to scoring difference in that group. Yeah. The 2 sides have finished on 0 points, so it's going to come down to scoring difference. Then I know it sounds comical, and it is comical. They're pointless, and it is pointless, but that's what's going to happen.
It's probably something like they definitely need to look at the format. If there's only 10 teams in it next year, they really do have to look at the overall format. Or if they're going to go, if they had the 2 4s and a 3 again, then they have plan B. If somebody does withdraw, they have to rejig it.
Suppose in that scenario it should be the 2 best runners up, or the third best runners up. Even the teams that don't score no points shouldn't. To me, it's definitely not.
Well, you see, they're stuck there because they're going to take 3 teams out of Section 1, where there's 4 teams playing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here,
That's
Chris.
Right.
They're going to take 3 teams out of that. That's 3, and have they take 3 then out of either B or C, as they have? And they're 3 out of one and 2 out of the other.
Yeah. And I suppose the other scenario would be putting all 4 teams through out of the first group, which would also be equally as bizarre. So I suppose they're in a kind of lose-lose situation there.
The Petticoat situation left it difficult, but as Chris said, maybe if there was 2 groups and maybe bypass a quarter final and the top 2 teams go into a semi-final, might eliminate the spare week, to keep it up track with the other, the intermediate and senior championship. But listen, hopefully lessons will have been learned.
Right, before we finish, and thanks to Kellys Centra Mountain for their support, I'm just going to put you all on the spot now. Frank, who's going to come through in Group A?
St Eunan's and Gweedore.
Okay. Francie?
Yeah.
Okay. Group B?
Glenties, Winners, obviously, and Killybegs. Winners up.
Yeah, back that.
Same.
3 out of 3.
Very boring. Frank? the Glenswilly, the Glenfin, 4 Masters, Milford. We know Milford are through. Who's going to join them?
Obviously Milford through. Boys down to that there Glenfin 4 Masters game, and Pat Campbell, a Glenfin man in charge of 4 Masters. 4 Masters, a bit of momentum now, you know, and a young team. It'd be nice after going down Division 3, you know, it'd be interesting to see 4 Masters. 1 through to a quarter.
Is that the head of the heart talking?
Maybe a bit of both, maybe.
Okay, Francie.
I'm going to stick my arm out here, and I still think Glenswilly's going to come out of the group. I think Glenfin will beat 4 Masters, but I think Milford they're in a quarter final. It'll be on what team they put out. Glenswilly know that they'll have to put up a big score, and I think they can do it. They're probably independent when it's not in their own hands. Glenfin to beat 4 Masters. I'm going to go with Glenswilly and Milford.
You could be getting what John Harn got last week on Twitter. You could be next in line here. Chris?
I'm going Milford and Glenfin to come out of this group. I have a fancy for Glenfin. I think I have seen enough in them just about in the last couple of weeks. They're at home this weekend. It will be interesting to see how 4 Masters come off the high of Sunday evening, come into this one. But I think I've seen enough from Glenfin.
Okay, I'm going to keep my views to myself and say nothing. Many thanks for joining us. Thanks to Frank for stepping in place of John Harn. John will be back with us next weekend again. Thanks to Francie and to Chris. Our podcast, The Championship, will be back next week, and I can guarantee you that next week we will know the quarter-finalists in the Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure Senior, Intermediate and Junior Championships. Thanks for joining us.
Donegal Sport Hub, Donegal Daily Championship Podcast. Brought to you in association with Kellys Centra, multi-award-winning store, Mountain Top Letterkenny, providing 24-hour service 7 days a week.